All right, thanks, Matt. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be back in Chicago. It's hard to believe that another year has gone by, but this is always my favorite meeting of the year. So, Matt, thanks for including me. Thanks for this kind of super soft topic of becoming an effective partner. He asked me to do this, and I was like, absolutely. And then I was like, oh my God, what am I going to say, right? So, let's see. It's the green button, right? There we go. Disclosures, none of which obviously are relevant to the contents of this talk. I am definitely not an expert on this topic, and I have to admit, when Matt initially kind of asked me to do this, I was like, be an effective partner. I was like, what's he talking about? Is he talking about, a golf partner like on the golf course? And I actually proved this morning that I was a terrible partner. Matt and I were partners, and we were actually up 3 with 3 holes to go. We lost that match, and then we were up 2 with 2 holes to go, and we lost that match too, actually, and so I'm sorry, Matt. Then I was like, well, maybe he wants me to talk about like how to be a good partner, like in life. This is my wife and my kids, but I realized he probably didn't want me to talk about that. So I'm going to try to talk a little bit about what I think is important to be a good partner at work, right? And I think there's a lot of things that kind of go into this. I think relationships are key. It's probably the most important thing, and I would strongly encourage everyone in this room, particularly those who are residents and fellows in the room, if you don't mind me raising me. Yeah, so a fair amount of people, which is usually the case, which is great. You guys are this is the most exciting time kind of, right, of your life. You're finishing training, you're starting your practice. A lot of you guys are starting families. It's also incredibly stressful. But I would strongly encourage you when you get to your practice to just take the time to get to know the people that you're going to work with. I mean that it's really important. It's not just your surgical partners, right? It's your APPs, it's your OR nurses, it's your MAs, it's your schedulers, it's your referral networks. I think that's probably the most important thing you can do when you start practice. It's going to help your practice, but more importantly, it's going to kind of help to build relationships that are really key in terms of you being happy kind of working there and going to work every day. I think it's really important. I do think that outcomes and volume matter. You have to kind of be a good steward to your partner, and so obviously volume and E&Ms and OR cases and administrative work and all that stuff is really important. So if you kind of say yes to something, you got to kind of follow through and obviously do a good job with it. I think that's really important. You kind of have to seize every opportunity that you are given. I learned that from Wellington a long time ago, and it's probably been some of the best advice that I've gotten. Always be available and willing to help. That's probably the best way to be a good partner, particularly early on, right? So I've been very lucky. I've been part of 2 groups, soon to be a 3rd, which we could talk about over a drink, but that's a different story in itself. But I've been a part of 2 amazing groups of people, and I kind of learned that very early on. Like, you always want to be available and willing to help, right? So if someone asks you to kind of switch a call with them, the answer should be yes, especially obviously if you can do it. I think that's really helpful in building those relationships early on. And then for me, I kind of always wanted to, become kind of a mentor to people, either trainees or obviously partners or nurse practitioners. There's so much you can kind of learn from one another kind of in your work environment and kind of be a role model. So I think that's really important. So what does the word partner really mean? It's kind of scary to think about, but you will spend more time with people at work than you probably will with your own family, which is kind of wild to think, right? And so it's really important to kind of choose the right group and to choose a group of people that you can see yourself working with every day and kind of enjoying that. I think it's so important. Don't just kind of coexist in a group, right? And so I think I really would encourage you to kind of take an active role and kind of, in your practice, whether or not be in your private practice, your academic practice. I think sometimes, what we do for a living is not easy, and it gets busy, and family life gets busy, and you can kind of start getting in this kind of narrow, kind of blinder, kind of, silo mindset of just going to work and kind of leaving. I don't think that's good. I don't think it's good for yourself. I don't think it's good for your partners in your group. And so don't just kind of coexist. Be really an active member, I think, of that partner. Obviously you got to work together, right, to accomplish individual and group goals. There has to be kind of an alignment. There has to be trust with your partners, and you have to be willing and eager to have shared success. I think daily decisions impact everyone in that group. And, you have to kind of focus on a shared reputation, shared risk, but there's definitely shared upside. And your partner's behavior and your behavior, more importantly, is going to become your practice's brand, right? And I firmly believe that. So building relationships is really important. I used this slide last year when I kind of gave my talk at the annual meeting, but I think it's really important. It's building relationships with your patients, obviously, with staff, with your colleagues, and your families and friends. And the most important thing about this is that this takes time. It takes practice, and like anything else, you can really learn from others and improve over time. And I've learned a ton from the people that I've gotten to know through this society. People like Daryl Brodke. I know Daryl walked in just not so long ago. Wellington, Alpesh, my current partners. You can learn so much from kind of people you work with, so you have to be open to that. I think there has to be kind of clinical alignment to be an effective partner and being a good partner. And similar thresholds for surgery, that's really tough, right, for spine surgery, because if you show a case in this room, you may get 15 different opinions, right? But I think you have to build relationships with your partners, to respect each other, to agree to disagree, to kind of learn from each other. But also you have to be kind of on the landing pad. I think if you kind of start doing stuff that's off the landing pad, I think it really starts to kind of negatively impact the group, not just kind of one individual. I think quality of care obviously really matters, right? That should go without saying. But early in practice, like and Praveen just gave that talk, which was perfect, figure out how you want to kind of look at your outcomes. You don't have to be at a big academic institution. You don't have to want to publish and kind of be on the podium. But I do think you have to be really critical of your own kind of outcomes and make changes based on what's working and what's not working. Obviously, respect referral patterns. I think that's really important in a sense, and protect the group's like relationship and reputation. And these are kind of just, I will admit too, I actually used ChatGPT a little bit for this talk, so some of these things may, but it's actually very helpful. So I think variation in judgment erodes trust internally and externally. I would agree with that. And referrals are really a shared asset. They're not an individual entitlement. Obviously, the most important thing about being a good partner at work or at home or anywhere in life is really kind of being a team player, right? There's no I in team. So you have to use kind of efficient OR block utilization, flexibility when partners need access, a thoughtful use of resources, implants, tech, biologics, based on kind of what your hospital contracting is. I think it's all important for the group and the finances of the group. Obviously fair participation in call, willingness to help, reliable follow through, and really don't disappear. Like when things get tough, don't disappear. I think that's kind of one of the worst things you can obviously do is avoid conflict in kind of your group, because these are people you're going to work with for a long time. And so in the words of the great John Wooden, a player who makes a team great is better than a great player, right? And I would believe that. And then for Phil Jackson, the strength of the team is each individual member. The strength of each member is the team, right? So what breaks up partnerships? I think kind of misaligned indications. And I think if you kind of, as a group, aren't kind of thinking at least somewhat like each other, I think that could potentially be a problem. Referral poaching, you don't have to steal patients for your partners, I promise you. If you take good care of people, you will get busy. You'll get so busy that you want to try to figure out how it can kind of get slower. That happened to all of us in this room. I think lack of transparency is a problem, right? Whether it be finances, compensation, decision-making, support. Ego is never a great thing, right? Ego over group success is not a good thing, and that really kind of breaks apart groups, I think. Address issues early, and there should be really no passive-aggressive workarounds. I think avoiding conflicts doesn't preserve partnerships. It weakens them, and transparency is really key, right? You got to work together for the benefit of the group, and really individual success will follow. So, I think strong practices and being a good partner are built, they're not assumed. I think it's something that you can work on. I think always being a team player is probably the most important thing about really being a good partner. Your partner's behaviors become your practice's brands. That's important. And I think small daily behaviors kind of compound. And you want to be the partner, right, that others trust with their patience, they trust with their time, and they trust with their reputation. So I'm going to finish, and I'm a little over time, but because this was a soft topic, Matt, I kind of took the liberty of just using some quotes that I wanted to kind of say to everybody. So this is Michael Jordan. If you think and achieve as a team, the individual accolades will take care of themselves. Talent wins games with teamwork, and intelligence wins championships. I completely believe that. Winners focus on winning, losers focus on winners, right? So I think that's kind of an important one. This is really important. I really believe this, So this is my Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And so I think this all kind of ties into being kind of a good partner and taking care of the people that you see every day at work. And I don't know if you guys have seen this before. I think this is great, the tale of two wolves. One evening, an old Cherokee told his grandson about a battle that goes on inside people. He said, "My son, the battle's between two wolves inside all of us. One is evil. It is anger, envy, jealousy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. The other is good. It is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith." And the grandson looks at the elder and it says, "Well, which wolf wins?" And the old Cherokee says, "It's the one that you feed." And so really, at the end of the day, if you want to be a good partner, just always do the right thing, and the rest doesn't really matter. So thank you.